Good morning. Welcome back to the Rocky Mountains College School of the Mines. Today, I want to talk a little bit about lubrication. And the reason I'm talking about lubrication today in specific is, again, just a reminder, I've loaded an actual hollow point bullet in this particular revolver. And I know this is one of those things that just never happened, but here I go. I'm pulling this out real quick and giving you an idea. Now, when it comes to lubrication, I kind of can be pretty picky. You won't catch me putting a lubricated fiber wad between my bullet and my powder in a revolver cylinder like this. Now, like it or not, I have my reasonings, but that is one, again, I could load a cylinder like this quite regularly, say at the beginning of a summer season, and have it on my side, and as long as I never shot it throughout that summer season, in the fall season, it would remain that way forever. And that just, in my mind at least, and quite frankly, pretty evidential, that lubricated fiber wad right next to your powder in any will dilute your powder over time. Well, with these hollow points, of course I got to take off my glasses to even see what I'm doing again here. But with these hollow points, not that it matters much, but I did load these with 30 grains of GoX powder. Right now that's enough, but I was kind of concerned because generally I don't lube the grooves in this because I like a lot of lube because of the time spent on the cylinder or on the revolver, and I've been kind of struggling on how I'm going to approach that. Well, I've decided I'm going to use a piece of leftover dowel here. It's I think a 1/4 inch dowel, and I'm going to pull out a stick of my lube. And when I say a stick of my lube, I save little containers like this. This one happened to be a Burt's Bees lip balm casing, and then when it got used up, I reused it. So we got a combination of a lube in there, and for the kicks of it, I'm going to try it. And I can tell you right now, it's not overly successful. Now, the reason I'm concerned about the hollow point isn't necessarily right, wrong, or indifferent. I just don't, I want to check and actually I'm almost, because of the precision of this, I'm almost doing better without the stick and just working in one direction with it. Almost like packing a wheel bearing grease into your wheel bearing using your hands and fingers. I'm using almost that method, and it seems to be going actually a little better. But anyway, I wanted to test these hollow points out both as uninterrupted hollow point, and compare it to one that would be sealed over with grease. And then I got so much grease on there that I'm going to show you that, yes, I put just a little bit of dab of what is on there, and I put it into the cylinder pinhole, just like so. You can see it's not in there heavy, but it is in there. And then I'm going to put this back together. Not as good at that as I once was, but I'm there. Oh. And I'm going to address lubrication just a little bit. Now, recently I saw a video that was referring to lubricating patched round balls with a combination 50-50 water and Dawn dish soap. I don't know as that Dawn dish soap is the important part of that ingredient, but I did something over the years pretty similar, and of course it was a commercial grade stuff called Thompson Center's number 13, and I would have wet patches in competition every shot, and I considered that not going an all-day excursion without swabbing. I actually considered that being swabbing per every shot. Now, Bertha's pet load was, or is still, I still have roughly a pound of old Einsford's 2F, in which, for whatever reason, she liked 120 grains of it. Now, I say that knowing that I get on the horn of efficiency a lot, but I also know that Bertha does not completely burn that 120 grains. But bias tells me that don't mess with what works. If she likes it and shoots it well, I follow up with it. And in that load, I always kind of look at it as a certain amount of that is going to be, of that powder is going to be contaminated, especially when I'm running such a heavy patch of liquidy patch, that I'm going to have a certain amount of powder containment with the lubrication. And that's in part up here, knowing that that's going to happen. Now, when I go for a hunting situation, I use a much heavier, much closer to something like this that I really rub in, whether it be a factory lube or production lube, whatever, or my own homemade, which I have more darn lubes than I know what to do with over the years. But I want a heavier lube. Again, I know there's going to be a certain amount of contamination of lube to powder, but at 120 grains, I figure I've got that factored in. Now, you can take and do with that information what you will, because, you know, like everybody, you know, we all have our own little methods. Also, you've seen how I lube my Remington, or one of my Remingtons, and I decided to bring back out the Colt and pull it out. And I also, as I mentioned, lubricate Colts, and I can use the exact same bullet grease, and I'll run some out here. And I never suggest to anybody to overlube. So in this case, I got a tiny bit here, ran it down the length of this, and I'll add it to it just like so, and then put the cylinder back on it. Okay, and now I'm going to put the barrel back on it. And I know the other day I talked about the poor fitting of these revolvers, that and I only showed out a couple of points on this particular one. But the truth of the matter is there's more than one issue. I can put this revolver, put it together, and there we go. Slide that pin all the way in, and it's still a loose pin, and the barrel still wobbles at full tightness, which tells me again about the arbor to barrel housing fit. Now, when it comes to this lube situation, this is a pretty soft lube, but you don't want a lube so soft, i.e. Crisco. I don't know why Crisco has become such a thing or debate, other than Crisco at the amount even that I put it on this revolver is a slime fest. It's too soft, too low temperatured lubrication that one shot, and usually you end up with a slime ball, and before it's all said and done, you got it even in the palm of your hand on your shooting hand, and it's not pleasant. One last thing, and again, I mentioned this before, but this little contraption is spare cylinders. This is my Remington Pieta cylinders. I've had them for years, and quite frankly, this rig has been with me, well, since about 5 or 6 years before Pale Rider ever came around. So when I talk about this and talk about not absolutes, to say that this couldn't have happened is like saying I, even in the 1980s, couldn't have come up with this thought on my own. And as a matter of fact, today in a lot of places in Europe, both Colts and Remingtons, people will take and load them up way ahead of time with spare cylinders, because certain countries in there that have a desire to do cowboy action are only allowed cap and ball revolvers. So they set them up ahead of time. But with that in mind, to say to somebody that it couldn't have historically happened is to me like saying, well, because it was 1860, they were just too stupid to think of anything outside of the box or military manual. People are individuals. I don't care if it's 1760 or if it's 2060. Yes, I know we ain't got there yet, but people are capable of free thought. So with that in mind, I'm going to tell you right now, if you came here wearing your feelings on your sleeve, looking to get your butt hurt, you probably came to the right place. And thank you for dropping by.